Thank you all for joining today. We're going to give everybody an opportunity to go ahead and join, and we'll get started here in just one moment. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm certain that people will continue to join over the next little bit. But as we get started, I just want to go ahead and introduce the man of the hour, so to speak. And this is going to be Milan Batinich. And I want to introduce him. Milan draws from 20 years of contact center operational and sales management experience from American Express and Blue Cross Blue Shield and other organizations. Milan holds several certifications with the Predictive Index and Stanford University School of Medicine for Human Behaviors and Psychology for High Performance. Milan is the founder of the Milan Batinich Group and Milan Motivates, a professional development and motivational speaking company that guides individuals in their journey to find joy, happiness, and energy in their work. Milan is a dad, avid cyclist, coach, storm chaser, and unfortunately, he's a Purdue Boilermaker fan. But we don't hold it against him on, when it comes to things like this. Just one other thing before we do get started, Milan, we have some Q&As that people can go ahead and respond to. If you click on your down at the bottom of your screen, if you have a question that you want to ask or enter into the chat, feel free to go ahead and do those. We'll monitor and try and answer them on the fly if we can. If not, we'll go ahead and make sure that we get them answered by the end of the end of this webinar. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Milan.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark Brody. What a wonderful introduction you have there. Up until the unfortunate part, or the part that you mentioned was unfortunate.
Well, I just got to keep it real, my friend.
I will say last week I heard Kansas lost twice, Purdue lost 0 times. So we'll see what that does to the rankings.
But it is not April yet, so remember who's still the reigning champ. So anyway.
Oh man. Well, thank you, Mark Brody. Thank you, Brohawk Solutions, for having me on this morning. I'm excited to talk about employee engagement and solving for the employee engagement puzzle, the enigma that is employee engagement. Um, so I'm sure there's people out there that have had a job that they've disliked or that they've hated. Hopefully, it's not your current job. If it is, we should talk about other opportunities. I hope you find your next landing spot. In my past, I can think of one job in particular that I wasn't fond of, and it was a job where I was micromanaged and really was in an environment where there was no engagement for me. It did not speak to who I naturally was, and because of that, it was very exhausting. And so, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. Mark, like I mentioned earlier, if anyone has any questions at any time, feel free to interrupt. Feel free to ask those questions and have this as interactive as possible. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. And before we talk about what employee engagement is, let's first cover what it is not. I know a lot of organizations think if we get a pool table in our break room, ping pong, darts, if we have scooters that you can ride around the office, if we throw money at you, I've even known a contact center in southern Wisconsin that offered beer on tap and wine on tap for its employees, thinking that would engage the workforce. Not so much. These things aren't employee engagement. These tangible things that you try to motivate your employees with, that you try to drive them with by saying, hey, look, we have a pool table. That's not employee engagement. It's not a way to sustain engagement over a long period of time. I remember I toured one center outside of Boston that had a pool table, and they ended up taking plywood and covering it to make it an additional cafeteria table because nobody was shooting pool on their pool table. So definitely not a form of an employee engagement. So what is employee engagement? Really what it is, when we define it, is it's a state of mind. It's an emotional connection, and it's behavior shared between the company and the employee. So ultimately, when we talk about what is employee engagement is a relationship. It's a relationship between the employee and the organization. Think of, and I'll say this a few times throughout the webinar today, think of DNB, drives, needs, and behaviors. Every human being on the planet has four primary drives. First one is acquire and achieve. So how much dominance or how much drive to acquire and achieve does somebody have, or how little of that drive does someone have? Second is to bond and belong. So how high is their drive for social interaction with other people, their belonging? Third is to be challenged and comprehend. So how much of a challenge do they enjoy in the workplace? And fourth and final is define and defend. So being able to share the amount of details and make decisions based on the amount of details that they have at their disposal in order to be successful in their job. When we think of needs that go along with those drives, when you think of acquire and achieve, somebody with a low drive for acquire and achieve, they're going to need encouragement and reassurance. Somebody with a high drive for acquire and achieve, they need independence and control of their own activities. And so because of those needs, you'll see certain behaviors. Somebody with low acquire and achieve drive, they're going to be more cooperative and they are going to be more accommodating to other individuals on the team. Somebody with high amounts of that drive are going to be more independent, assertive, and self-confidence. When we think of bonding and belonging, those with low amounts of that drive, they're going to need more of those opportunities to reflect, and they need room for introspection. They're going to think things through. People with high amounts of that drive, they need opportunities to interact. They need social acceptance. So I know, pick on Mark for a second. I know Mark has a high drive to bond and belong, which is probably why he roots for the Kansas Jayhawks. I'm just kidding, just kidding.
Killing me.
Killing you. Now, the third one, challenge and comprehend. Those with low amounts of that drive need variety and they need opportunities to work at a faster than average pace. Those with a high amount of that drive, they need long-term affiliation and the ability to work at a steady pace. And because of those needs, they're going to behave a certain way. Those with low amount of that drive, they're going to be intense and restless, driving. Those with high amounts of that drive, are going to be peaceful, patient, and stable. And then again, the last one, define and defend. Individuals' needs for low amounts of that drive is freedom from a rigid structure. And if they have a high amount of that drive, they need an understanding of rules and regulations. Because of that, again, you'll see certain behaviors, drives, needs, behaviors. The behaviors you'll see with someone with a low amount of define and defend drive, they're going to be tolerant of uncertainty and more informal. And then obviously the opposite of that, those with a high amount of that drive are going to be much more serious and meticulous in the work that they need to do or in the work that they do at their workplace. So when we talk about employee engagement, it's really speaking to each individual's drives. And then because of that, you can really assess their needs. And based on their needs, they'll exhibit the behaviors that are needed for the specific role that they're in and the type of work that they're performing. Now, when we talk about disengagements, there's four forces around disengagement. When an employee starts a job over time, obviously they want to keep their job. They don't want to lose their job. They don't want to be terminated from their job, from their role. So over time, they're going to, if they're disengaged, they're going to do the bare minimum. So whatever the minimum requirements are of the job, they're going to try to attain to those minimum job requirements, as you can see on the graph here, based on the red line. So they have a have to attitude. I have to do this so I don't get fired. When somebody is engaged in the job or in the company that they're working for, if they're really enjoying the job that they're doing, if it really speaks to who they are naturally, then they have an emotional commitment to the job. And when you have an emotional commitment to the job that you are doing, you put out discretionary effort. So it no longer becomes I must do the minimum in order to keep my job. That emotional commitment will drive people to exceed expectations and give out this extra effort. A lot of times in the workplace, if somebody's required or expected to work 40 hours a week, a lot of times these are the individuals that are putting in 50, 55, 60 hours because they're feeding off of the job. They're energized by the work they do. So they go above and beyond because of that emotional commitment. Now, the four forces around disengagement, number one is the job fit. So if somebody isn't in the right type of role, they're going to become disengaged. Anytime you're put into a role that isn't a good fit for who you naturally are, it drains your energy and you become exhausted. So when you're not in the right job role, you become disengaged because you're tired and exhausted at the end of each day, at the end of each week, each year. The second force of disengagement is your manager. So if you, as an employee, if you're not being managed appropriately based on who you naturally are, it's going to, again, drain your energy. You become disengaged. And as we continue down, it's the same thing. You as a leader, if you're managing employees a certain way based on your management style and not managing them the way they need to be managed, then your employees are going to become disengaged. Third is the team. This is your colleagues. And anytime you add a new team member or a team member leaves or you remove a team member, it changes the entire team dynamic. So in order for an employee to be engaged, they need to be a part of the right type of team where they will work well with one another. If not, again, it'll bring down that employee's engagement. And then fourth is culture or the organization as a whole. Is the employee aligned with the company's mission, vision, goals, core values? Is it a good cultural fit for the employee? Is it a good organizational fit for the employee? If not, again, that employee will become disengaged. So again, the four forces of disengagement are the job fit, manager, team, and culture and organization. So now the big question. The reason you're watching this, the reason you're attending, the reason you may watch this in the future is how do we solve this problem? So in order to solve this problem, in order to solve the employee engagement puzzle, we must understand a few things. Number one, we must understand the differences between the platinum role and the golden role. When I started my career, I was taught over and over, oh, we have to live by the golden rule. And the golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, there's a little bit of a problem with that. It sounds great. It sounds wonderful. Treat others the way you want to be treated if you want to be treated well, right? The problem we run into with the golden rule is you treat people how you want to be treated, but what if you don't want to be treated a certain way? Or what if you want to be treated a certain way that other people may not want to be treated the same way as you? So it runs into a little bit of a wall with the golden rule. Really, we must elevate ourselves and live by the platinum rule. The platinum rule isn't treat others how you want to be treated. It is treat others how they want to be treated. And I'll take it a step further, not only treating others the way they want to be treated, but treating others the way they need to be treated. So not just the way they want, but the way they need to be treated. Again, based on their drives, based on their needs in the workplace. So treating others the way they need to be treated. We must remember that everyone is perfect just the way they are. It's true, and everyone is different in the way that they're perfect, just the way they are. So when we see that everyone is different, I'm different, Mark's different, you're different, we're all different. So if everyone's different, the way you want and need to be treated is different than how your neighbor or how your family member wants and needs to be treated. The way I need to be treated is going to be different than the way Mark needs to be treated. So really being able to live by the platinum rule will help with employee engagement in the workplace, because then employees feel like, wow, my manager's really managing me the way that I need to be managed versus based on their individual management style. So it's being able to adapt and adjust to fit your employees, which I think a lot of managers nowadays fail to realize that, hey, I have a management style, but how can I adapt my management style to fit my individual employees and what my individual employees need? So that's the first thing, the platinum rule. The second thing is extrinsic motivation. So what is extrinsic motivation? Extrinsic motivation, think external. It's right there, EXT, external motivation. This is where a person is motivated to perform an activity for one of two reasons. You perform an activity for either an external benefit or reward. So you're performing an activity because you'll be rewarded. Or on the flip side of that, you're performing an activity to avoid punishment. So both results are external. If I do this, I will earn this reward. If I do this, I will avoid this punishment. So when we think of extrinsic motivation, those individuals will engage in behavior not because they enjoy it or because they find it satisfying internally, but because they expect to get something in return or to avoid something unpleasant. So extrinsic motivation is good, but when we talk about employee engagement, we really need to look at the third piece, which is intrinsic motivation. So this is the third piece, and we're really going to dive into, for the rest of our time today, into the intrinsic motivation and how we can apply some of these motivations into the workplace, okay? So we talked about the platinum rule. We talked about extrinsic motivation. Third, intrinsic motivation. This is where you are motivated to perform an activity for its own sake and your personal rewards. So what my intrinsic motivations may be will be different than what your intrinsic motivations are. And they'll be different than what somebody else's intrinsic motivations are. Intrinsic motivation is when you engage in a behavior because you find it rewarding internally. You're performing an activity for its own sake, rather than the desire for some external reward. Doing intrinsic activities or intrinsic motivation is doing an activity just for the sake of doing the activity because you feel rewarded internally once you accomplish the task or as you're doing the activity and once you accomplish the activity. The behavior itself is its own reward. And I can't remember who did this, but a recent study was done assessing more than 70,000 people. And here's what it found. The study found that valuing external validation and outcomes over internal rewards and satisfaction was associated with negative well-being. So I'm going to say that again. So again, there's a study of over 70,000 people. And what it found was that by valuing external validation and external outcomes over internal rewards and internal satisfaction, that by valuing the external more, it was associated with the person's negative well-being. So obviously, if we want employees engaged and we want to be an engaged employee, we must associate ourselves with positive well-being, and we must associate our employees with positive well-being. So instead of focusing on external validation, we must focus on internal validation, which goes hand in hand with intrinsic motivation. So now let's look at some workplace intrinsic motivations. Now there's hundreds, if not thousands. And Mark, don't worry, I'm not going to go through hundreds or thousands of examples of intrinsic motivations. Although I know you would probably enjoy that.
You know me,
I'm
I
gonna
love
go.
the details.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go through probably 7 or 8 instead of several hundred, instead of 7 or 800. So the first one I want to go through is as a workplace intrinsic motivation is curiosity. We all know what curiosity is. A curiosity really pushes us. It drives us to explore and learn for the sole pleasure of learning and mastering. So many people that have this as an intrinsic motivation. They're curious. They're the people that are asking questions during meetings. They're the people that want to always learn more. They're the people that will take it upon themselves to take additional classes at work or certifications or just try to learn as much information as possible. So the way you can help your employees with their curiosity is by offering learning opportunities for growth for the employees in areas of work or other areas of the business. It doesn't just need to be in areas that they work in. A good example is for contact center employees. Yes, you can offer additional training or additional learning opportunities for your contact center employees around their job, but then also providing them with opportunities to learn other areas of the business. Maybe it's training or quality assurance or leadership, whatever it might be, being able to learn other areas of the business, or even for organizations that aren't just a contact center, learning other areas of the business. Maybe it's the retail area or the IT area, or just giving learning opportunities to employees to be able to learn other areas of whatever your business might be, not just within their own departments or their own type of work that they do day in and day out. So being able to feed to that curiosity, giving them learning opportunities. The second one is challenge. So some people enjoy being challenged, others do not. Like I said, some of these intrinsic motivations may be for some people and may not be for others. Again, there's hundreds. So for those that have an intrinsic motivation, internal motivation to be challenged, these individuals need to be challenged. And it helps those individuals to work at an optimal level and work towards meaningful goals. So the way you can help your employees with this is by allowing for individual goal setting and achievement. So being able to allow each individual employee to set their own goals in addition to the team goals. I know many contact centers, many organizations will have KPIs and metrics, but then in addition to that, also giving employees the opportunity to set their own goals and then accomplish those goals. So to challenge themselves, even if there isn't an external reward. Again, that internal satisfaction of being able to complete their challenge or reach their goal is the reward because it's internal. Third, I'm going to put two of them together as control and autonomy. So control comes from our basic desire to control what happens and make decisions that affect the outcome. So some people need to be in control of their activities and control of their life. So a good way to help employees gain control at work is by asking employees for feedback and their opinions on business challenges before you make decisions. So maybe you're assessing a new telephony tool, or you're assessing a new CRM, or you're assessing changes to metrics, or you're assessing a recognition program, or whatever it might be. By giving employees the opportunity to voice their opinion on maybe what they like with their current system, what they wish their current system had, by giving them the opportunity to share their opinion before a decision's made, again, before the decision's made, will help employees that have that intrinsic motivation for control. It'll give them the feeling of, hey, my voice is being heard, my company's asking for my input. Again, before you make the decision, don't make the decision that you're going to start using XYZ CRM and then go to employees and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because then all those employees that want to have that control may come from the perspective of, well, the decision's already being made or been made. So I don't know what my perspective, what type of impact my perspective will have. So asking employees for feedback and their opinions on business challenges before making decisions. And then the second part of that is autonomy. So autonomy is being able to have some control over how you spend your time and energy. So we talked about control, and then with control, kind of as a subset, is autonomy. So having control over how the employee spends their time and their energy. So the way you can do this is by allowing employees the freedom to make decisions with their own work whenever possible. I understand you may think, well, it's not possible for them to be able to like control their schedule or control, the order that they complete their work. But as much as possible, if autonomy is one of your employees' intrinsic motivations, then somehow try to find ways, think outside the box and come up with those creative ways to be able to give employees the opportunity to make decisions and have that freedom. The next one is recognition. So as human beings, we have an innate need to be appreciated and satisfaction when our efforts are recognized and appreciated by other people. I don't know if I've ever met someone, whether it's public recognition or private recognition, that doesn't enjoy being recognized or appreciated for the work that they're doing. Highly extroverted people prefer public recognition. People with low extroversion prefer private recognition. So kind of a handshake, pat on the back, one-on-one type of recognition. So the way that you can help your employees with their drive or their intrinsic motivation to be recognized is by developing a recognition program where any employee can recognize others for a job well done or for going the extra mile or for living out the core values of the organization. So being able to praise one another, either peer to peer or top down or bottom up, by giving employees the opportunity to recognize one another. All right, the next one, it's another double one, doubled up on cooperation and belonging, because again, these two kind of work hand in hand like control and autonomy do. So when we think of cooperation, this is being able to cooperate with others. And by cooperating with others, it satisfies our need for belonging. Individuals with this motivation will feel personal satisfaction when they help others and when they work together to achieve a shared goal. So a way that you can offer cooperation opportunities at work for your employees is by allowing employees to join decision-making committees with their peers, with leaders of the organization, and by allowing employees to assist each other with difficult work or tasks. So giving employees an opportunity to cooperate with one another and work in that team environment. And by doing that, by allowing them to cooperate more often, it gives them that sense of belonging. Belonging is being able to connect to something greater than yourself. It may be your community, a cause, your team, an organization. It could be a tradition. But having that belonging, being a part of something. Fame and money are ego-driven, but with ego comes a ton of worry. When people focus on their ego, a ton of anxiety and worry comes with that. But with belonging, you got to work together and you got to feel you're a part of something greater than yourself. So a way you can do this at work, give employees the feeling of belonging, is by finding ways that employees can take time to focus on what they care about within their work and outside of their work. So getting involved with employees even outside of their work. Because if you can create a better work environment, ultimately that leads to a highly engaged employee, a highly engaged workforce, and that carries over, it pours out of the workplace into the home life. When we create a better work life, it creates a better world, right? Outside of work. I have a couple more before I move on, Mark. Were there any questions?
No questions as of right now.
Okay.
I think that I think going through these intrinsic motivators is real important because it really allows us to be introspective as leaders to see how we're applying some of this today versus how we'd like to apply it tomorrow.
Definitely. Good point. Health. So sacrificing physical or mental health now to chase some goal that you think will make you happy or healthy later almost never works. So don't sacrifice your health. Um, what we need to remember is that progress is great, but allow ways to make it sustainable for your employees. I know what's come up a lot over the last few years, especially through the pandemic, is offering employees wellness programs, both not only for physical wellness. I think pre-pandemic, there were companies or organizations that focused on physical wellness. They would have wellness programs around the physical. But I think what's very important nowadays, in addition, don't abandon the physical wellness programs, but in addition to physical wellness, is also the mental wellness. So having mental wellness or mental health wellness programs, mental health awareness wellness programs is vital. It's a necessity for many employees. So being able to offer that to your employees, I think, is vital because it speaks to the intrinsic motivators for employees. They'll become more engaged if they feel supported not only in their work, but also physically and mentally. And the next one is meaning. Everybody wants to do meaningful work. I think health, meaning, belonging, probably recognition are all intrinsic motivations that will speak to most, if not all, employees. Some of these may not speak to everyone, but I think for those in particular or specifically, will speak to most, if not all, employees. So when we talk about meaning, it is better to do work that's in alignment with your core values than it is to chase numbers on a scoreboard. So let me put that a different way. It's a whole lot better to be in a job or to do the type of work that gives you an internal fulfilling. It aligns with who you naturally are. It aligns with your core values, not just your own motivations, but it aligns with your core values. Okay. Much more than just chasing numbers or chasing KPIs or chasing metrics, or if you're in sales, chasing sales numbers. Being in alignment with a job and the work that you do that's in alignment with your core values is absolutely vital in order for you to be motivated and in order for you to be engaged and happy. External scoreboards are fine. Most companies need external scoreboards, but internal scoreboards are much more important. And I'm gonna use something here that actually Mr. Mark Brody came up with. And Mark, I'm gonna have you unmute and share with everyone what it stands for. But instead of thinking KPI, think KBI. And I know I put you on
Yeah.
the spot. What is
Hey, it's all
KBI?
good. Yeah, so with KBI, and it's something that I'd heard being used um, uh, sporadically over the last 6 months or so, but it really stands for key behavioral indicators. And it's really, instead of focusing on the end result of what the key performance indicators are, because those are like after the fact type of results, it focuses more on the behaviors that contribute to the actual results. So, for instance, if you need people to take more calls, um, how are you able to, what's the behaviors that the frontline agents are taking to go ahead and lengthen their calls currently, and how can you go ahead and help them navigate through their job a little bit more effectively. So focusing more on the behaviors as opposed to the end results.
Right. Awesome. Very good. Yeah, I love that. When you said that before, Mark, I've used it now. And since you're on this one, I'm like, oh, the creator of KBI can share it. I love it. I love it.
I wish I could take credit for it, but
It came from
I'll
someone
take the
else.
kudos. Yeah, I'll take kudos for planting the seed with you. How's that?
There you go. I love it. That's perfect. Um, so remember when you're in a job or when your employees are in a job that is a good fit for who they naturally are behaviorally, and if you can speak to their intrinsic motivators or motivations, they'll gain energy. Anytime you're in a role that is a good fit for who you naturally are, you become energized by the work that you do. On the flip side of that, anytime you're in a role or working for a company or an organization, working for a manager on a team in a role that maybe isn't a good fit for who you naturally are, maybe you don't find enjoyment in it, is going to drain your energy. And over time, when we talk about employee engagements, you can take a very engaged employee, um, and whether it's around, again, the four forces of disengagement are job fit, manager fit, or manager style, team, and culture or overall organization. And when you take a highly engaged employee and you put them into a situation where it may not be the right job fit, or manager team culture, when that happens over time, because it's not a good fit for who they naturally are, they become tired. And when you have an employee who's tired all the time, over time, guess what happens? They go from tired to exhausted. And then they go from exhausted to disengaged. They go from disengaged to updating their resume. They go from updating their resume to putting it on ZipRecruiter and Indeed and LinkedIn. And then all of a sudden you have attrition because you're like, well, what happened? This person was so highly engaged. Well, what changed in the work environment? Did their job role change? Are they reporting to a new manager that isn't managing them the way they need to be managed? Are they on a team now where maybe there's people on the team that aren't a good fit for the team or for that individual within that team? Or has the culture of the organization changed? Has the overall health of the organization changed? And that'll disengage employees. So when we talk about those four forces of disengagement, number one, again, job fits. The way you can really highlight this is highlighting employees' skills, their skill set. So providing employee training and development opportunities. When we talk specifically about contact centers, that landscape is ever changing, and ongoing training is necessary for agents to be engaged, and it's necessary for agents to be successful, in addition to having development opportunities. Even if you have agents that just want to be agents for their whole career, you still want to give them their knowledge and feed into that curiosity, intrinsic motivator. Second, again, is manager. So managing the employee the way they need and want to be managed is the platinum role. So again, living by the platinum role versus the golden role. Communicating clearly between managers and frontline agents is vital to the health of the organization, to the health of the relationship between the manager or supervisor and the employee. Again, third is team. So being able to foster a team spirit, giving agents the opportunities to collaborate with one another during training sessions, being able to exchange peer-to-peer feedback, possibly or potentially utilizing gamification or recognition tools, utilizing a tool like Slack or Teams for communication as well really helps employees, especially in a remote environment. I know for our own organization, we utilize Teams, and there's groups within these teams. So within our organization, we have various groups, pet lovers groups, sports teams groups, where people can, even though they all work remotely, they can interact with one another around their interests. And people over the years have become friends just through communicating on Teams and over the phone with one another when they don't even live in the same state and they've never met each other in person, but they've become friends through common interests. And then again, the fourth piece is the culture of the organization. So you can implement workplace optimization, not only for brick and mortar, but also in a work at home or work from home environment. Another way is to establish a brand mission. With over 50% of the US workforce being the millennial generation, this generation's biggest need is the why. Why does the company exist? What is the mission of the company? Why are we in business? Why are we helping the customer? Why are we doing this? Why are we selling this product? Why are we doing this service? Whatever it might be. Why? So the why is very important for over 50% of the US workforce. And the purpose that the company exists. So remember, purpose. Why do we exist? The purpose that the company exists and how is the company helping the customer and the community is essential for that generation, for the millennial generation. So the purpose of why the company exists, the purpose of how the company is helping the customer, and the purpose around how the company is helping the community that it exists within. And then the third piece around culture is utilizing employee feedback. I know many organizations, most organizations will do some sort of survey or asking their employees for feedback. And then a lot of times it just stops there. It's like, okay, thanks for filling this out. And then nothing comes from that. So not only having employees provide their feedback, but then also utilizing that feedback and going back to the employees and saying, here's what we heard you say collectively. And here's how we're going to improve the organization or improve the culture or improve the work that you do or whatever it might be. Here's how we are going to take what you told us. Here's the feedback. Here's how we're going to take that feedback and utilize it back to the organization and back to you as the employee. So making sure not only that you're collecting the employee feedback, but then you don't just throw it away or drop it off, then you're utilizing the employee feedback and providing that back to individuals and to teams to be able to improve the organization. Then again, leads to the higher employee engagement. So I'm sure one of the questions you may have in the back of your mind is, okay, this is great, intrinsic motivations, but how do I know what my employees, or how do I know my own motivators? How do I know my own drives, my own needs, my own behaviors? Well, here, I want to give you something for free. Mark, I'm just going to give away free stuff today, okay?
Hey, it's all good.
So if you'd like to take a free behavioral assessment, feel free. Once you complete it, you can do it through the scanning this QR code on your phone. Takes 5 to 7 minutes. Once you do that, you'll receive your results. If you want an explanation around your results, you reach out to Mark. He can get you in contact with me. You can reach out to me. I can give you a free readout or readback of your results and provide that for you as well. And if you need to know how to get a hold of me, here's a little bit of questions we can answer. But here's how you can get a hold of me. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter. You can email, call, text, whatever you want to do. So with that being said, hope you've enjoyed this session on employee engagement. I want to mention one other thing that I forgot to mention at the beginning is that this session overall, how to solve for the employee engagement puzzle, is certified with HRCI for strategic credits. So though, if any of you are on this that are in HR, or if you're in an organization and your HR people need continuing education credits, let them know about this because this is approved for HRCI strategic credits for continuing education. So yeah, so just want to throw that out there as well. All right, so I
Milan.
appreciate everyone's time. Yeah, go ahead, Mark, if there's any
Yeah.
questions.
So, putting all of this together, it sounds like the first place for a leader to start is really understanding where they are and understanding who their teams are more
Right.
so than anything else. The intrinsic and extrinsic motivators are great, but if you don't have that initial self-awareness and also awareness of others, so that high emotional intelligence,
Yep.
um, you may potentially miss the mark. Would you agree, disagree with that?
I agree with that. Yeah, because if you don't know who your employees are behaviorally or what they
Yep.
need behaviorally or from a management perspective, then you're just going to be guessing at what they need intrinsically. So, I mean, I can say most people, if not all, need some type of recognition or appreciation, right? Pat on the back, whether publicly or privately. But then when it comes to other intrinsic motivations like curiosity,
Hmm.
or some of the others that we went through today, if I don't know who that person is or what's motivating or driving that person, if I'm not assessing that first, then you're exactly right, Mark. I'm guessing at some of those other things that are motivating them internally. I mean, you can ask them, but even if you ask employees, they may say, I need to think about that, or I'm not exactly sure what my intrinsic motivations might be. But by assessing that, and Mark, you hit it on the head. Self awareness is defined two ways, and it's important for us to have self awareness of ourselves. And the way it's defined is number one, self awareness is understanding our own drives, needs, and behaviors. So, what motivates us? What do we need in the workplace? And how will we behave when we're given what we need? And then the second piece is how does my style impact others? So the way I communicate, the way I make decisions, the way I take action, um, how does the way I interact with others, how does my style impact everyone else? So once you understand who you are and you understand how who you are impacts other people, you develop this self-awareness of yourself, obviously. And so based on that, you can adapt and adjust. I remember years ago when I managed a contact center, I had about 60, I'd say about 60 agents, and I would share information. I would communicate because I was thinking, Mark, I'm Milan. I have a management style. This is the way I manage. Deal with it. Before I understood all of it. And so at the end of a meeting, 40 of them would be like, yeah, it was a sales retention contact center. They would say, yeah, I'm motivated. Let's go. Let's do this. 10 of them
Hmm.
would be indifferent, like, okay, whatever. It's just another day. Wait till Friday for my paycheck. And then the
Yep.
other 10 would be like, wow, I hate this guy. I need to look for a new job.
Yep.
Where if I understood my employees, I can go to the 40, motivate them one way. I can go to the 10 that were indifferent, motivate them and communicate with them a different way. And then the other
Mhm.
10, motivate and communicate a different way. One thing that I will say is typically it is it's kind of splits between two or three, maybe four different styles for your employees. It's never, or I've never seen it where if you have 300 contact center agents, you have to adjust yourself 300 different ways. I know that question has come up in the past. So,
Yeah.
do I need to adjust my style for 300 different employees? Like, how can I find the time to do that? Now, usually employees, especially if you're an inbound customer service center, typically you're going to have probably two to three groupings of people, maybe four groupings of people, where you just need to adjust for those two to three, maybe four groups of individuals.
Milan, I think that that's a great segue to this next question. And just sometimes, and you and I in a prior life, um, we worked with an individual who was hired to do a certain job,
Mm-hmm,
became very knowledgeable in their job.
mm-hmm,
But when it came down to it, they were coming off a certain way because they were on a voice channel. But when they got moved to a non-voice channel, their engagement, their happiness, their willingness to go over and above, even more than they were doing already, just like went 10x higher.
right,
Um, because because we as leaders or the leaders in that team, really got to understand what this person's strengths and drivers were. Um, and when it comes to hiring for certain roles, it's really incumbent upon the operations team to partner with the HR team and the recruiting team to really create that profile of who's going to be most successful in
right.
in a given role. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
excellent.
definitely. Being able to collaborate together with those
Hmm.
departments, I think, is a necessity in order to be able to have an engaged workforce and to be able to not only hire the right people, but then coach them appropriately.
Yes, yes,
Definitely.
excellent. Um, Anybody on the call have any additional questions? There we go. We have a question from Connie. Um, do you have any tools you recommend over others on helping understand people's drivers?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I've been exposed and have experience with several different types of tools. My favorite one, and the one that I use most often or pretty much all the time now is the predictive index. So PI. Um, that one is created specifically to how people interact in the workplace. So some of them out there are more so maybe outside the workplace or kind of gives you an overall idea of the person. I like predictive index when we're talking specifically about the workplace because it is around how people are motivated or what motivates them at work, what their drivers are. So yeah, so I think the predictive index I would say is the ideal one for how people are at work and who they are at work. Absolutely.
Excellent. And Milan, um, that's been statistically validated too, the predictive index, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
excellent.
I mean, in the marketplace, there's 1,200 personality or behavioral assessments. There's only probably about four or five that are validated to use for, say, hiring, and predictive index is one of them. And I mean, there's plenty of tools. Every tool is made for a certain reason. Like I saw somebody mention Gallup Strengths Finder. Strengths Finders is a great tool. Myers-Briggs is a great tool. DISC is a great tool for specific areas, I would say. So yeah, I would say all of those are good. I've just found the most success. I've used, I say those four because I've used all four of those. I've used Strengths Finders, Myers-Briggs, and DISC and PI. And I've just found over the years PI to be the best one for me and my teams and my organization. But yeah, I think all of them are decent. Like none of them are bad. I've just found that one to be the most accurate when it comes to the workplace and validated, statistically validated to be able to use it for hiring, where some of the others you can't use it for hiring. So yeah. So like I said, I think all four of those are good. My favorite one is PI, just because from my experience of using all four, it seems to have worked the best for me.
Excellent. Yeah, I think the question that's in the Q&A is, do you have an opinion, or what is your opinion of utilizing strength finders, Gallup strength finders, as a tool to help with engagement? Do you have an opinion one way or another with that?
That's a great question. I think so because Strengths Finders, I mean, it identifies what each person is good at. So then when when you understand their strengths, you may not understand what drives them, but when you understand what they're good at, what they're strong at, now with like PI, being able to identify what drives them in collaboration with their strengths, then you find out, okay, do they actually enjoy doing this? I think where strengths finders may lack on the employee engagement piece is even though they may have that as a strength, do they find enjoyment in doing that? There's certain things that I have as a strength internally, but I don't find enjoyment in doing that as my job. So if I were forced to do that every day at work, I would actually become disengaged. Even though it's one of my strengths,
Hmm.
I just don't find it as enjoyable. So I mean, it could be a good tool as long as you understand what motivates the employees and what drives the employees in addition to their strengths. Then I think it can definitely help towards employee engagement for sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Made me think.
Excellent.
I think I like that.
Hey, anytime you can get Milan thinking, it's a good day. So uh,
At least there's no smoke coming out, right?
exactly, exactly. Um, well, excellent. Any other last questions for Milan? Give it a minute, another minute or so. And again, if you want to continue the conversation with Milan, his contact information is listed on the screen. If you want to dive in a little bit more on a self-assessment, the you captured the QR code. Reach out to Milan directly, or reach out to me. At Mark at Brohawk Solutions .com, and I can definitely help arrange or get that conversation going. And just want to thank everybody and for attending today's session. And Milan, definitely wanted to thank you for taking time out of your schedule as well to be a panelist on this conversation. I think that um, in this new leadership um, um, realm that we're in, the more the more tools that you have in your toolbox to become more success for your organization to be more successful, the better off you are. So
Perfect. Well, Mark,
excellent.
thank you for having me and everyone that came. Thank you for coming and thank you for the questions. Yeah, this was a ton of fun for a cold Monday morning.
Yes, yes, excellent. That's why I have the beach scene in my background. It's for your honor because I know it's like under 10 degrees where you're at right now. So
It is, and I love the beach, but I'm not by the
there you
beach.
go. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you all for attending today. And if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to myself or Milan directly, and we'd be more than happy to go ahead and help you out. Thanks a lot and have a great day.